They thought their bombers were untouchable, gargantuan machines built for long-range power projection and nuclear deterrence. Yet, on 1st of June 2025, deep inside Russia, Ukraine's drones didn't just fly, they hunted, locking onto strategic bombers like the rare Tu-160 and turning them from symbols of dominance into burning wreckage on remote runways.
Ukraine's daring deep strike inside Russian territory, named Operation Spiderweb, was planned for over a year before striking at the heart of Russia's strategic bomber fleet.
What does it take for a swarm of relatively cheap drones to find, track, and strike aircraft worth hundreds of millions of dollars each? Before we break down the tactics, numbers, and consequences, one question. Could this be the dawn of a new era in air warfare? If you're intrigued by that possibility, like this video, subscribe for more sharp analysis, and let's get into the hunt for Russia's most feared bombers. This wasn't a random drone strike, it was a calculated hunt. Ukrainian planners zeroed in on one of Russia's most prized assets, the Tu-160, the fastest and most powerful bomber in Moscow's arsenal. With only about 16 operational aircraft in service, every single jet matters. These bombers carry long-range cruise missiles and form part of Russia's nuclear triad. That means when Ukrainian drones tracked them down sitting on the tarmac, engines cold and wings swept back, they weren't just targeting metal, they were targeting strategic leverage. A grounded Tu-160 is massive, visible, and predictable. Once coordinates are confirmed, it becomes a fixed target. And when drones arrive in waves instead of one at a time, even high-value assets start looking vulnerable. But the scale of what these bombers represent makes the hunt even more explosive. The Tu-160 fleet is small by design and smaller in reality. Around 16 are considered operational today. In 2018, Moscow ordered 10 new-build Tu-160Ms at roughly $270 million apiece. Officials talked about eventually receiving 50. That hasn't happened. By early 2024, only around 3 newly built Tu-160Ms had been completed, and none were fully operational. Production is slow, expensive, and complex. Sanctions and wartime strain don't make that easier. So when Ukrainian drones hunt down even one bomber, the loss can't be shrugged off. These aircraft aren't replaceable in months. They're decade-scale investments. And because they're central to launching cruise missile barrages into Ukraine, hitting them on the ground directly affects Russia's strike capacity. But the Tu-160 wasn't the only Cold War giant in danger. Alongside the Blackjack sits another key strike platform, the Tu-2D M3 Backfire C. When the war began in 2022, Russia had roughly 60 of these in service. First flown in 1977, with 268 built by 1993, it's a Cold War workhorse still heavily used today. In Ukraine, the Tu-22 M3 became closely tied to the Kh-22 supersonic missile. Originally designed to destroy ships, the Kh-22 was repurposed for ground attacks. It's extremely destructive but notoriously imprecise, and its use has resulted in significant civilian casualties. So when Ukrainian drones hunt bombers at their bases, they're not just chasing prestige targets, they're going after launch platforms responsible for some of the most devastating strikes of the war. And hunting them on the ground changes the balance instantly. Strategic bombers are designed to evade fighters and missiles in flight. They are not designed to withstand coordinated drone assaults while parked. Once on the runway or apron, their massive size becomes a liability. Previous Ukrainian attacks hit one base at a time using limited numbers of long-range, one-way attack drones. This operation appeared broader, more synchronized. Instead of probing defenses, it stressed them. A Tu-160's wingspan and fuselage make it easy to identify from satellite imagery. Once the position is known, a swarm doesn't need speed. It needs persistence and precision. And when even one drone slips through layered defenses, the consequences are immediate and dramatic. But Russia had already seen this threat coming. Earlier Ukrainian strikes exposed bomber vulnerability, prompting visible countermeasures. Blast walls were installed between aircraft to contain fire and shrapnel. Dozens of hardened shelters were built at several bases. Yet bombers like the Tu-160 are so large they cannot easily be tucked away like smaller tactical jets, so unconventional methods appeared. Car tires were placed on top of wings and fuselages, reportedly to disrupt image-matching seekers. Silhouettes of bombers were painted on concrete as decoys. Retired aircraft were arranged to mislead targeting systems. These steps signal awareness of a real threat. But mixed effectiveness of air defenses shows adaptation hasn't fully closed the gap. And when defenses rely on improvisation, hunters look for weak seams. The Tu-160 and Tu-22 M3 are not just conventional strike aircraft. They form part of Russia's nuclear triad. That raises the stakes dramatically. Strategic bombers provide flexibility. They can launch cruise missiles, patrol internationally, and act as visible signals of power. They regularly fly long-range missions over Europe and Asia, sometimes near Alaska. They are prestige platforms as much as combat tools, so when Ukrainian drones hunt them down on their own soil, the message extends beyond Ukraine's borders. Even a small number of destroyed or damaged bombers affects credibility. Deterrence depends on perceived survivability. If high-value nuclear-capable bombers can be hit while idle, strategic calculations shift, but rebuilding that deterrent capacity isn't simple. The Tu-160 program tells a long story of delays and expense. 2 prototypes flew in 1981, followed by 33 production aircraft before 1994. After the Soviet collapse, 19 were left in Ukraine. Between 1999 and 2000, 8 were returned to Russia. The rest were scrapped, except 1 preserved. Fast forward to modern times. In January 2022, the first new-build Tu-160M took flight. But production has been slow. Only around 3 new-build examples had been completed as of early last year. None were operational. With each aircraft costing roughly $270 million and requiring advanced avionics, radar, and mission systems, scaling up is not quick. So if Ukrainian drones blew up even a handful, those losses cannot be rapidly offset, and that financial strain compounds the military impact. On the same night Ukraine targeted air bases, Russia reportedly launched 472 drones and 7 missiles at Ukraine, the highest nightly drone total of the war so far. Drone warfare is now central to both sides, but here's the imbalance. A relatively inexpensive drone can threaten an aircraft worth hundreds of millions. Traditional air defenses are optimized for larger, faster threats. Swarming drones flying low and from multiple angles complicate interception. Future systems may incorporate AI-driven navigation, making them less vulnerable to jamming and more autonomous in target acquisition. That evolution only increases the risk for stationary, high-value aircraft. When cost per shot heavily favors the attacker, the defender faces a difficult equation, and that forces changes in how bombers are based and protected. One likely response to drone hunts is greater dispersal. Spread aircraft across multiple bases, reduce clustering, increase unpredictability, but dispersal brings trade-offs. Strategic bombers require long runways, maintenance crews, specialized equipment, and secure munition storage. Moving them frequently strains logistics and reduces sortie efficiency. Russia has been constructing hardened aircraft shelters for tactical jets and even considering massive shelters large enough to house a Tu-160. Yet building enough protective infrastructure for the entire fleet would take years and enormous funding. Meanwhile, drones can launch from significant distances, making perimeter security more complex, and until protection catches up with threat evolution, the hunt remains possible. What makes this operation so significant is not just potential damage numbers, which remain uncertain, but the strategic ripple effects. Previous strikes targeted single bases with limited scope. This time, the scale appears broader and more coordinated. If multiple Tu-160s or Tu-123s were destroyed or rendered inoperable, Russia's ability to conduct large cruise missile barrages could be temporarily reduced. More importantly, it dents the perceived survivability of one leg of the nuclear triad. Moscow has previously described attacks on strategic assets as red lines. Yet bomber bases have been hit before, and now on a larger scale. Ukraine's drones didn't just strike aircraft. They hunted them down, found them exposed, and turned parked symbols of power into burning wreckage. In the end, the hunt for Russia's bombers shows just how unpredictable modern warfare has become. Even the most elite aircraft aren't safe when drones and smart tactics come into play. This operation didn't just target planes, it challenged long-held assumptions about deterrence and air power. Do you think the age of high-value bombers is over? Or are they still essential in modern conflicts? And would you rely on drones as the main game changer in future wars? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video, subscribe for more insights, and thanks for watching.